YouTube.
I see
Almost
that. I see
getting
that.
there. The little bars
If
going.
for everyone for everyone joining us that's on right now, if you can please change your chat settings to all panelists and attendees, so that way we can address questions um, and as efficiently as possible. Helps us answer everyone's questions and navigate the chat room space. Do we have everyone here with us
Good.
today that's going to be here? I think we do. Um,
Okay, we are good. We are live.
we are live.
We are live on YouTube now. Yes.
Perfect. Welcome everyone for joining us for another episode of TM 101. We have made it to webinar number 49. We are almost to webinar number 50. Can't believe it. Right now we've got MJ, we got 5-1, we've got Jim Runge and Doug with us, joined by our special guest, which MJ will intro here shortly. If you have not changed your chat settings, please change it to all panelists and attendees. Today, we are continuing the conversation with building a better house. We'll take a deeper dive and pull the curtain back on everything that goes on in the venue. So I'm going to pass it over to MJ and we'll get this started.
Great, thank you. So this episode, what we're calling "Building a Better House," was actually just inspired by an email that we got from a venue technical manager in Red Deer, Alberta, Canada, and he had been watching these sessions and was taking some inspiration from hearing about the touring side of things, and what he could do to make his venue just better so that artists can have a better day, things can be smoother, takeaways from our logistics session about how he can make parking more friendly. And we thought, there's so many cool independent venues that we've been at that just they're just great for one reason or another. And we wanted to talk about that. So to Gerald Dixon, thank you for inspiring this episode, because it's really great to know that you guys are listening and we can have that conversation. So today our guests are Mark O'Shea from the Goodyear Theater in Akron, Ohio, and Karen Shaviv from the Fox and Boulder theaters in Boulder, Colorado. So we're gonna chat with them about what they do to work within the parameters they have, what their venues are like, and what they're doing to make it a great day for us. So I'm going to start with Karen. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and about your venues.
So I'm the head of production for Z2 Entertainment, which is based in Boulder. We own and operate the Fox Theater and the Boulder Theater. The Fox is a 700 cap club, and the Boulder Theater is a 1,200 cap theater. And we also last year acquired the Aggie Theater in Fort Collins, which is similar to the Fox. And then we promote shows at Chautauqua Auditorium. So we oversee a lot as far as venues go, and they're all very different, which is fun because we have the Little Rock Club and the big theater. So I started as an intern at the Fox Theater 20 years ago as basically a teenager. So I've been there a long time, but came back full circle about 8 years ago to be the production manager. So that's sort of my bio and what I do.
And Mark, how about you? Tell us a little about yourself and your venue.
Hi, I'm Mark O'Shea. I'm based in Akron, Ohio, but I live and work also out of the Cleveland market. I work for a company called the Elevation Group. We book and run and manage the Goodyear Theater in Akron, Ohio. And we also book and run and carry out the Wonderstruck Festival in Cleveland, formerly known as Laurel Live, and also the Wonderbus Festival in Columbus as well, of which I'm also production manager for as well. Boy, where did I get my start? Oh boy. Being a fanboy. Growing up in Cleveland, going to school in Southern Ohio, roadieing for bands, working for the concert board, seeing the Talking Heads Stop Making Sense tour, being the crew chief and kind of going, like Jim said many moons ago, kind of watching that, kind of going, I want to be a part of that. So figured out a way in, worked for Belkin Productions out of Cleveland, Ohio. My first touring gig came to me by an A&R guy who was impressed with the way I was hustling at a gig. Gave him my business card, went on tour with a band for 12 weeks in the summer of '88. Being from Cleveland, Ohio, I was lucky enough to hook up with Belkin Productions. I worked for them as a site coordinator, production manager, a runner as well, and then met and worked and ran into Mr. Resner from Nine Inch Nails. We were fast friends. We worked together in the other bands he was in. I hooked up with him, cut my teeth running around the country and the world with them for a couple of times, and amongst many other bands as well. So I took a sabbatical for about 12 years, got into the building trades. My boss, Denny Young, brought me back in. Denny and I had worked together for Belkin Productions. I'm happy as a clam, being back into business since around April of 2016.
And that's when you went to the Goodyear?
Yes, that is correct.
And tell us a little bit about that, because I know you're gonna talk a little bit about it later, but more in detail. But explain, because it's kind of a unique venue.
It is. We are located in what used to be Goodyear Tire and Rubber's world headquarters, based in Akron, Ohio. Inside that building, as David and Mark can tell you, is nestled a cute little old theater. It was never meant to be for the public. It was supposed to be for the company to use and to host all of their community events. It was built in 1929. It's as solid as a rock. As the building inspector and fire chief told me, it's able to take a blast. So that being said, in 2016, I was brought in by Denny Young and the Elevation Group to help them run a few shows. Things went really well. They then hired me full-time as their production manager for that venue, and then also to work with them on their festivals. It's a great place. It's a lot of fun. We share the same space with 95 apartments. There's a ton of apartments across the street as well. There's a brewery there. There's a restaurant there. There's a Starbucks. There's a hotel right next door. So there you go. Plenty of parking. Come on down.
I can attest. It is a wonderful venue and theater. I can attest. It's a wonderful space.
Thanks.
So Mark and Karen, what does your job role entail, and what does the GM do compared to what you do, and is there overlap? And let's start with Karen on that.
Yeah, so you can almost take the venue and divide it in half, and everything from the stage back is more or less production manager territory, i.e. me, and everything forward towards the front of the building is front of house, or with the general manager, operations manager overseas. So they'll take care of box office, security, the bar, front door, any food and beverage, things like that. And then, I deal with backstage. So anything involving the artist really, or tech. So sound, lighting, stage, parking, hospitality, merch does end up falling under, my jurisdiction, things like that. So that's sort of how we divide up the duties, but there's overlap. And I know we're going to touch base on that later, but things like VIP, which up until recently, every tour had a VIP component or a meet and greet, and that usually involves some security, maybe a bartender, some production, maybe it's a sound check party. So that tends to cross all borders, and we share a lot of that responsibility.
Mark?
Interesting position. When we first started at the Goodyear Theater, there's only 2 full-time employees, one of which is Ben Barr, who is now the general manager, and then myself. When I first started, I was the general manager and production manager, but Ben rose to the occasion of being able to do, as Karen said, a lot of the front of house work. We work really great. We're in the same office every day together. Ben takes care, as Karen said, ticketing, security, bar, hiring bar staff, regulating that. And as I say, anything from the downstage edge to the upstage edge is all mine. So.
Yeah. So Karen just touched base on VIP a little bit. How do you guys split that up with the GM, and how do you work that with and is it different versus company versus tour? How do you handle that?
It's a work in progress. I think that because it's not a brand new thing, but it's just increased in popularity a lot in the last few years. And sometimes it comes down straight from artist management, fan club, to our box office manager to handle that end of it. And then I hear about it from operations. And other times it comes in my advanced process from the tour manager to me, and then I communicate it to operations. So there's not a consistent way that gets handled on the band side. And therefore you have to be sort of nimble with how you handle it on the venue side. And like with everything, communication is the most important part. No one wants a surprise VIP party.
Mark, how do you handle VIP at your venue?
Well, when we obviously the shows are booked, I'm immediately given the deal memo, which is the first couple of pages of the contract. Read it over, go through it. I also noticed that there would be a VIP meet and greet, or there is some kind of meet and greet. It seems to be, as Karen stated, standard these days where the artist is looking for a little bit more of an interactive role with their fan base. They will have a VIP meet and greet either before the show, after the show, after sound check, before sound check. But so number I have to coordinate with Ben if there is a need for a VIP event. That being said, if there is a company on tour with the artist, such as I believe we mentioned a company like CID, for example, they will sell the VIP packages for the artist. We will know that in advance. There will be somebody from that company that will contact either me because my name is on the contract. And then I will then in turn put that person in touch with Ben Barr. Ben will then take it from there. If that company needs extra staffing, if they need security, if they need a bar for their meet and greet, these are all extra things above and beyond what happens on the production side of things. So yes, there is a good amount of communication that needs to take place. If an artist is coming through and they do not have a company that is handling that in particular, like the time when Mark came through with the American Authors and Magic Giant, I just directly put him in touch with the general manager. Anything and everything that was included to that meet and greet and the sound check performance or anything related to that gets covered with Ben, and any of the information that I need to know as far as timing, because I do all the timing, comes to me. And we take it from there.
Forgive me if my internet freaks out here because I'm having a couple of issues, but one thing that really, one of the key challenges, and I'm sure both Karen and Mark, you can identify with these, of operating a venue at your size, let's say the club to theater level versus an arena that are typically purpose-built for sporting live music events. Some of them still have their issues, obviously arenas, but theaters and clubs, they're typically historic buildings, like you said, Mark, there, they might have been built in the 20s, they might have been built in the 40s, they might be a converted warehouse or an old theater or an old Goodyear building like yourselves. So there are immovable objects when you're operating a venue at that level. You might be in an area where you have no parking, you cannot accommodate parking there. You might have an area, particularly in Europe, there are many venues that are in historic parts of the city, old parts of town, where buses and trucks either cannot go all together or are extremely difficult to get in there. So, Karen, first of all, could you talk to us a little bit about how you get over those challenges working with a tour? You're going to have, let's say you have 25 shows in 1 month and you have an immovable issue like that. How do you do you work around that when you've got bigger and bigger productions coming through your room?
So the short answer, the one word answer is communication, or the other word could be advancing, because really anything can be resolved with enough warning, with enough understanding, with enough communication on the front end with the tour coming in, that you have a plan in place and there are no surprises. There's nothing a tour hates more than rolling in and then realizing that they don't have parking near the venue or a dock to load in on. So, you know, the Boulder Theater, our venue that sees the big tours, doesn't have a dock. It was built in the 1900s. It's, you know, an old theater, and there's been modifications to make it more tour friendly, but still we can't park trucks and buses, and, you know, they have to park on the street. So you're always dealing with street parking. Vehicles roll in at 2 a.m. and you need to make sure it's open at 2 a.m. Things like that are fine as long as everyone stays ahead of it, and the artist tells you they're coming in at the middle of the night, so you know it can be ready and coned off and prepared. So I think just making sure, you know, I know we discussed a little that, like, there's some things, as you said, can't be moved. Maybe you have a venue that has 2 flights of stairs to get up and no elevator, and so you do a show, you make sure you have extra stagehands, you budget extra time. As long as there's a solution in place and everyone's aware of it, you can overcome any of those hurdles.
Right. And the example we talked about yesterday was the Barrowlands in Glasgow, which is notorious, but also, you know, notorious because it's an old Victorian ballroom, and it has no elevator, and it can't accommodate an elevator because of the building, but everyone still loves it. And the load-in is hell, but you know, everyone just knows that you have enough crew and that it's going to take some time, but it's still a fantastic venue.
It is hell, but it's also very entertaining also. So
yeah.
That's most entertaining crew ever.
Yeah, when you see guys carrying amp one on each shoulder upstairs, like, you can't help but be fascinated by it. It's like,
or the chain winch.
Yeah, the chain winch.
That's by hand. Yeah.
So, you know, getting out in front of problems is key. If you have an immovable object, if you have something that will always be an issue, you know, communication, getting out in front of it, being clear with the tour that this is what we have, this is how we deal with it, and it's gonna be fine. We have shows here all the time.
Yeah, be reassuring, and you say this is our snag, but this is how we handle it, and this is what we normally do, and here's what we can offer as another option. So just be prepared, and knowing what the options are, it makes the day smooth.
And another thing we talked about is, again, you know, arenas tend to be bowls. They tend to follow a very formulaic pattern of how they're laid out. If you walk into a bowl and you can't find the toilets, just keep walking around the bowl. Theaters are clubs, and theaters can be laid out in a myriad of different ways. So during the advance process, I think it's, you know, again, we talked yesterday about your venue packs being clear and having pictures and being as in depth as possible, which, you know, I can't overstate on a theater tour how amazing it is to have pictures of the green rooms and of the house and of backstage. You know, it just helps you as a tour manager mentally familiarize yourself with the space before you go in. But you, Karen, you said you went one step further than that, right?
Yeah, so we actually had a company come in and do a full 3D walkthrough of the venue with a special camera called a Matterport, which is now very common in real estate more than ever, as people are not seeing houses in person as much. And basically it allows you to walk through the whole venue, downstairs to the dressing rooms, onto stage, full 360, front of house, and you can view it ahead of time. So it's a cool tool if somebody has a lot of questions about, like, the merch area looks like and how the dressing rooms are laid out. Rather than trying to explain it and send a million photos, they can like literally just walk through it on their computer. And I can show you guys.
Yes, please do.
You want to do the there?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Okay.
I am very excited for this. I was a total nerd yesterday.
Yeah, we were super geeking out over this, and she showed us this yesterday.
There's a few venues that have this, and it makes so much. I love spending 5 minutes just virtually walking through, seeing where I'm going to walk into, just having an idea of where I'm going to put my band, where I'm going to put my crew, where I'm going to put the opener. And then when somebody hits me with a question before I've had my coffee at 8 a.m., I can actually answer it for them, which is great.
Is this weird that I'm very calm with this experience? I feel like this is taking me to like a Zen space. Like I really just enjoy just being in this venue and walking.
I know. Well, especially when it's empty and quiet, right? This is the best time to be in the venue. So as you can see,
I can't wait to send this link to my crew and say, I'm not talking to you. Here's the 3D link. You can look at the venue, figure your own way.
Yeah.
your own questions, like check the tour book. So you can see where front of
No more
house.
talking to anybody. Just like, here's the link. Look it up yourself.
So you can really, check out. We can walk backstage here.
Amazing.
So good.
We can see, the limitations of a narrow hallway. We can see here, like this is the load-in door that people can check out. Here's our power tie-in, so we can, people can see where that is. And then even once you're on stage, you can usually like mostly look up, so you can see the rig. You can see where the truss is, where the fly bars are. You can see what it looks like from stage to front of house. You can check out Monitor World and see what's going to fit in this wing versus what might fit on stage right. And then best, you can walk down to the dressing rooms, which again, old building, super narrow hallway, set of stairs. Your giant wardrobe case is not going to fit down this flight of stairs. So noted, for some of the bigger tours we get here.
And that's great because the day before you can, if you're touring, let's say you have your TM, you have your production case, you can pull your small pally out and do a pre-pack for a small,
Correct. And we get a lot of those Red Rocks tie-ins where a band will play Red Rocks and then play even the Fox the next day. And I always encourage tour managers and production managers to think about how they pack their semi that night. So we're not dumping like 40 feet of lighting just to get to what we need in the nose of the truck. So anyway, so things like this to really, be able to explore a venue and then you can go all the way back out to merch as well.
I love that. I love the merch area.
I know the merch area. Everybody wants to know what the merch area looks like.
Never have to talk to your merch guy. I love that idea. You just again send them the link.
Send them the link, and photos are great too. But this, if you want to know how it all flows together, this is where you get that sort of cohesiveness of like, okay, how far of a walk is it? Like, where's the lobby? Well, this isn't really.
Karen, Madison is asking, is that virtual walkthrough for production teams only, or is that available, say, through your website?
No, so, with the Fox, we had actually shot 2 different versions of it because we wanted to have one that the public could see, but that didn't include like the dressing rooms because it's a safety issue to have the general public know exactly how to access the dressing rooms. Sure. So we did do 2 versions, but no, we don't put this on our website. We generally just, this is the kind of thing that we only give to tour managers and production managers in the advance process. And occasionally,
I do like the idea of having the audience have access to the venue itself. Like, I think that's cool because how great would it be to like visually see your seat before you buy tickets or something like that?
Exactly.
Actually, it's a great tool. It's a great tool for that too, for the front of house. Actually, without production, it's a great tool for the future.
Yeah, I think actually there are some ticketing systems and some venues that do that, where you can actually see what your view looks like from your seat before you buy the seat.
Yeah,
cool tool too. But the cost on getting this done was like, for a huge venue, it was maybe $500. So, and you do it once and you have it forever.
Which we were talking about yesterday. Just saving the time from having to bring your team in for a venue walkthrough early, it's paying for itself with one show almost, depending on the level of the show. So I think it's totally worth it.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely the first thing most tours do when they walk in is do the walkthrough of the venue. So they may still want to do that, but you kind of get to already have them know what they're getting into when they roll in.
Surprises are gone at that point, at least, because you can see all you're just coming in to like visually get the feel for it, right. But the surprises are gone. At least you can see like, if you have questions, you can question them ahead of time. That's great. And
you maybe even know which dressing room is going to be for who and where production office is going to set up. So everything's already sort of decided by the time you get. So it is a time saver too.
Yeah.
Great. Mark, I have the...
Actually, really quick, would you mind showing us the Fox at some point? We can move on that before. Oh, you don't have it. Okay, never mind.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry, Doug. I was just thinking that when you mentioned that you had the Fox, I was like, oh, it'd be cool to see the contrast between the venues, but that's okay.
I know, that would have been cool.
We'll trust you. Sorry, Doug.
No, you're good. Mark, I have your venue specs up here, and I love them. I'd love to share my screen if that's cool with you.
Sure.
And yeah, first of all, I wanted to ask you, how do you approach advancing any issues you may have in the venue with tours and approaching those with the touring productions?
Well, that's why if you look at my tech pack, having been a production manager and a tour manager, I kind of went through everything in my head from the standpoint of what is someone going to ask? What's going to be their question? What are their concerns? Ours is pretty easy to follow. What we have in-house for PA is listed. What we have in-house for lighting is listed. It even gets involved with how many universes there are. What is the lighting patch? Which I was informed one time, I can't remember which artist it was, where the LD brought his console on the bus and did the patch the day before or his arrival. So that was kind of neat and helped out. And going back to Mark's comment of saving time throughout the day, that's a great thing. We at the Goodyear Theater, the PA is permanently hung and installed. All of the lighting that we have in-house that's listed there is permanently hung and installed. The front of house truss comes in. We have 4 on-stage electrics that come in and out. The PA can come in and out. It's staffed and maintained by 8 Day Sound out of Cleveland, which we're very fortunate to have if we have any technical issues. What else?
I think the thing that I really like about this this tech pack is it's just everything is there. Everything is super clear. It's really well formatted. You start out with what are clearly some frequently asked questions. You got out in front of some things here. You've addressed the fact that it's a heritage building. It's 1920s theater. You've put the seats for the house and also on the floor and on the balcony here, broken that out, mentioned renovation. And all of this is a great starting point. I'm starting to build an idea of the venue before I've even spoken to you.
Right.
And then you've got some, all the general first non-production elements here, load in parking, dressing rooms, catering, merch. And then you're straight into audio. Everything is super clear. And then into lighting. So you can break it out and send the key elements to your lighting and your audio on my side of things. And you also have here the date it was revised, January 2020. So it's a recent version. Super clear map with the hotel mentioned as well. And it's just everything you need to know. And before I have a conversation with you, before I start my advance with you, you've already answered a bunch of questions for me with this document. So one other thing that we said yesterday is on your size of venue, that the 1,500-1,600 cap rooms, you will sometimes come across a one-page sheet that just has the audio and lighting specs. And I'm just going to ask you all these questions that you've answered here. I'm going to ask you them 9 times out of 10. And you did say that, there are some tour managers, production managers who don't. And that's the exception to the rule. But why, you've put them here so I don't have to ask you, and you don't have to field the same question 20 times a month.
Right. And Doug and Mark and everybody else, I know you guys and David will also attest to this, and everybody else on the panel. I know you guys got your databases where, you're reading the information, you're picking and choosing what you need, you're sending it off to your LD, you're sending it off to the sound guy so that, when you're having these conversations and you're advancing your tour before the tour even begins, if I can send you our tech pack, I know that from my days as a run manager, it was like, give me the input as quickly as possible. So I can just start to share it with everybody so that there are no questions. The sound guy can't come up to you and go, "Oh, I didn't know it was a D&B rig here, man. This is a problem, dude." Go back to the bus. You've had this information for 4 weeks. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I'm lucky in that regard. I'm lucky.
I really like the pyrotechnic note. I think, for people that are traveling heavy with pyrotechnics these days, that instantly is a red flag note for anyone that's traveling with anything that's regarding flame or anything above that above fog or CO2. So that conversation, that cuts out a lot of conversation, and you're able to go back to management and be like, hey, we can't really do this room specifically if we do need pyrotechnics in this space.
That's just a big no in old theaters, especially, as Karen will tell you, we're a hemp house. So we don't like to open flame, no thanks.
Flames and old ropes don't go well together. Yeah.
No, they don't.
Can you just real quick? Can you define for some of the people watching what a hemp house is?
Sure. We're an old style theater where right above the deck, the stage is a large grid that has a lot of what they call battens, which are poles, and on those poles is 3 to 4 rope sets, and then somewhere either down on the deck there's a weight system that allows the pole to come in and out easy, or there's 3 or 4 guys up there each having a rope and pulling it down and lowering in your batten. And they call it a hemp house because back in the day, all of the ropes that they used on the battens were all made of hemp.
They give you splinters.
Not that kind of hemp. So, but that's why we call it a hemp house.
The Boulder Theater is that as well, the hemp house, so that we've really moved away from using those as much as possible because our system is so old, we still physically hang sandbags on the other side of it to counterweight. So it's a mess.
We do that too, but I'm in the process of redoing each batten one by one by one by one. And there is new rope out there that is nylon based. It's got metal fibers woven into it. Super wonderful, super strong. So we're lucky. And then my house is run by the local chapter of the Stagehands Union. Great guys, awesome dudes. And gals, we all get along great, and they love it. They bring their guys in for training. I let them come in. They teach the new kids how to use the system and work it, and that benefits me. So I'm all happy about that.
Well, Karen and Mark, which I'm really glad that you guys are on today because you're 2 of my most favorite people to chat with. So let's talk about crews. And I'm going to start with you first, Mark. You guys each had slightly different ways your house crew works. In order to make the day as smooth as possible, can you tell us how your house crew works in your respective venue?
Sure. Starting with audio, because we all like to be seen before we get, or heard before we get seen. My audio guys are, as I mentioned earlier, all come from 8th Day Sound, one of the best sound companies in the world. Very fortunate to have them literally 30 minutes away. They came in and they built the system. They were there for 6.5 weeks tuning the room. They know the room. They can log online. They can check the system. They, came in one day for work, and 2 guys had the house right PA stack down, and I go, "What the hell are you guys doing here?" Oh, we logged online. There's a blown driver. Great. So my house guy works on a day rate that gets billed through 8th Day. Done. Some days he's going to win. Some days they're going to lose. Some days are really, really long. Some days are really short. More of our corporate events are pretty short. It's a day rate. It's what it is. The rock and roll stuff takes a long time. My house guy, lighting guy, same thing. He works on a day rate. I'm fortunate that my main house guy at the moment, a guy named Jamie, was in on the retrofit and the build. So he knows the system backwards and forwards. He wired it, he built it. He didn't design it. That was designed by Pulse Lighting out of Nashville. So we're fortunate to have him. If he's not on tour with Engelbert Humperdinck, we get him. Now, my IATSE guys, they do my load-ins and my load-outs. They also do my stage crew work. IATSE comes in as loaders and hands. We do not have Teamsters. But we spent a long time getting it right with them. But we did, and it's great. They make me look good, and they make everybody look good. They just make the day better. They're trained, they're knowledgeable, they're great.
And
So
what about,
that's my step.
thanks, Mark. And what about you, Karen?
So we have maybe a slightly different approach, and it's not, neither is right or wrong. The approach I have has definitely pros and cons. A lot of venues our size have a house crew, and it's the same people every day. And with that, you get great consistency and dependability for the most part. I have a huge rotating staff. It's definitely a different way to do it, but almost all of them tour. And so what we get from that is a huge breadth of experience of touring engineers, LDs, stage managers, things like that, who are current, who are keeping up with what touring life looks like, can anticipate the needs of the artist the minute they walk off the bus, because they know it. They've been on a bus. They know that they're looking for a shower first thing. So I like having that variety too, because certain people are maybe better suited for certain types of events or prefer to work certain types of events. So I know I can kind of handpick that the crew I have is going to be a good fit for the show, that everyone has a good knowledge of what's happening on the road right now. And also lots of backup if somebody gets sick or can't make a gig. The flip side is that everyone has other gigs, and sometimes they cancel because they get a better offer somewhere else. So there's a fair amount of switching around on the schedule every month. Making the schedule is a challenge. And there's a little less accountability as far as somebody leaving a mess the night before or changing a patch and not putting it back. And then someone comes in the next day and has to deal with it versus it being the same person dealing with their own mess. So I get a lot of complaints about that, but for the most part, I think it makes us a richer, more diverse staff that can really accommodate a wide variety of different types of events. Because we do, straight up corporate events to huge rock shows, comedy, kids shows, early morning, late at night, everything in between. So it's nice to have that variety. Our staff is all hourly, so there's a minimum, there's overtime according to state law. So everybody's an hourly employee on our staff, technically a part-time hourly employee. And we are not a union house. So we have the state laws, we have some of our own rules that we implement, like the minimum hours. But beyond that, we're not a union house.
Starting with you, Mark, I would like to take a turn towards innovations within the venues. I know we spoke about it a little bit yesterday briefly. Innovations that y'all done to make the venue artist friendlier, set them apart. Can you tell us about any innovations you've made in your venues to set yourself apart and to be really artist friendly?
Well, as far as artist friendly, I would say going over the top in the dressing room. Each dressing room has got makeup mirror and vanity sink. They've got a private commode and a shower. You go in and shut the door and not have to kick everybody out of the dressing room. We have two of them. Going back to the fact that we were originally privately built, it's 1920, not 2029, is I would possibly give my second born for another dressing room. We're a little bit light on dressing rooms. We only have two, and we have one quick change room, which is down off stage left, but that also has a vanity mirror, a full sink, and a private commode as well. Other innovations we've made, going back to some of the stuff that seems to be hot these days, would be televisions with streaming services in each dressing room. Have at it. Dial and smile, like the old days of getting a free production phone line. Other great things that we've done. I don't know. Let me. A huge eating area. A very large area that we can do private meet and greets upstairs, up and out of the way in a very secure position. Other great things. Well, I don't know, on our campus, which is fun for bands when you're there trying to do things during the day, There's a restaurant, there's a microbrewery, there's a Starbucks, there's another restaurant opening, and you can wander around the building. I'll take you up and show you the Goodyear sign on the top of the roof. We also have a laundry facility available, and we also have the use of an apartment if you need to put one of your stars to get them away from someone off the bus. I can send them up to the 6th floor, and you can lock the door and be by himself all day. There's 3 bedrooms, there's 2 bathrooms, and there is a laundry service.
That's really cool, because sometimes it's like getting a day room. It's like you need a day room, but sometimes you end up going so far to get one that it's logistically not friendly. That's really cool.
It's almost not worth it.
We do have a hotel right outside the back parking lot as well. And it's also part of the campus, as we call it, ownership. And we have a great working relationship with the hotel, obviously. And rooms are cheap, not a problem.
All great points. And from being very fortunate to go through your venue this year, which I can't believe it was this year now looking back at it.
Kidding. You guys were the last one.
We were one of the last shows at your venue this year. Everything was top of the line. It's such a smooth experience from touching down to wrapping up. Definitely prepared for the future ahead. Now, Karen, I've also been fortunate to work at the Fox, do a gig at the Fox and at the Boulder Theater as well. So I'd love to hear about everything you got going on with those 2 venues.
Yeah, we've done some improvements. There's only so much you can do in a dressing room, like as sort of what Mark was saying. We'd love to add another one, and we don't have the room to add another one. But at the Fox, which is a small club, we did install a shower this past year, which is a big deal for touring people, to have a shower. And we redid the bathroom in the process, so it's shiny and nice and new, which is always appreciated. The Aggie Theater in Fort Collins as well has a beautiful dressing room now with a shower. So those are little things we've been able to improve. Beyond that, I think a lot of the changes we've had to make over the years has just been to stay current with technology. And in particular, as things moved from analog consoles to digital consoles, and from carrying big dimmer racks to everything being LED, more and more tours are carrying all of their gear in a little trailer, as opposed to, it used to have to be in a semi in order to bring consoles because they were huge and they were analog. So now we've had to make everything a little more modular. So we upgraded our consoles to digital, and now it takes 2 people to strike them instead of 8. And they can move. There's more room at front of house. We can welcome additional consoles. Our monitor world at the Fox used to be built in up high, and it couldn't be moved. And we had to rip that out and be able to put the little SC48 on the deck so that now we can strike it when someone brings in a desk, because there's not that much room. The stage is 30 by 20 at the Fox, and a lot of artists are carrying monitor consoles. So we want to be able to make room for them. Things like power, a lot of our power was old. We had to tie in tails, bare ends, and kill power and use a wrench. And now everything is cam lock. So things like that just improve safety. The Boulder Theater, as Mark was talking about, hemp house, a little complicated to hang anything. We installed an upstage and a downstage truss, and now we have more ability to hang things, to bring it in and out in a safer way. So these are things we do to A, just stay current and keep up with technology, B, make things more modular and more flexible and more nimble, because every tour is different and we want to be able to accommodate them as best as possible. And to, just in general, be a more welcoming, accommodating space.
That idea of becoming more modular and more adaptable in a production sense, that's something you both touched on big time yesterday when we had our prep call. I'm interested in that, and I think I know the answer to my question, but I would like to get your opinion on it. Is that a result of higher, pound for pound, an equivalent bus and trailer band now versus 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
Are you seeing the bands of a similar size and of a similar selling show carrying much more in terms of production?
Yeah, carrying much more in a smaller space, which is very cool. So now, again, 15, 20 years ago, if you were carrying everything but stacks and racks, you had a semi-trailer, no question. Right. And now you have a little trailer, a 14-foot trailer behind your bus, maybe smaller, because you can fit those little digital consoles, you can fit a bunch of lighting that doesn't require a ton of power, and your backline in a small space. So it's encouraged more people to bring that stuff on the road, which is great. I mean, we enjoy having artists bring in their own gear as much as possible, and it's easier to do it without having 8 to 10 stagehands to deal with it. So the cost has gone down significantly for bands to carry more gear.
Yes. It is amazing what you can fit now in a bus trailer just because of technological improvements. Like you were saying, those little SD11s you can fit, you can get a couple of consoles, some in-ears, and a backline and a floor package all in a bus trailer.
With no issue, yeah.
Don't put it on a weight scale, but you can fit it in there. You guys kind of touched upon it there, and it's something that I noticed. Maria's comment, cupcakes in the chat, and everyone knows it. Everyone knows the 930 Club in DC because of the t-shirts, because of the cupcakes. They're world famous because of it. And there are some venues that the crew will look forward to go. They see the name on the routing ahead of time and they're like, okay, great, I'm going to the Fox, I'm going to be going to the Goodyear, or I'm going to the 930 Club. That's awesome. I know I'm going to have a good day there. I think those little, the cherry on the top of the cake, that makes the crew smile and gives them a good day at your venue, whether it be cupcakes in DC or a really pleasant backstage. I know the Van Buren in Phoenix has a really nice dressing room, lots of light with a smoking deck and things like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be something so easy and cheap, like a pair of socks or a cupcake. But can you talk to things that you do in your venue that kind of go that little extra mile? Karen, yeah. First of all.
I can start since I'm unmuted. One big thing we do that is a little bit maybe hard to track the ROI on is we always have stage managers pretty much for all shows, and especially at the Fox, where again 700 cap club. I think a lot of bands who tour that size venue don't see that every day, but we really want the bands to feel taken care of and make sure that all their needs are seen to. And so we have that dedicated person on every show to make sure the schedule is kept and printed and coordinated, and hospitality is sorted and organized, and the set lists get printed and everything in between, so that tour manager knows exactly who to talk to when they need something. And I think that really helps people feel taken care of in a better way, instead of just being kind of like abandoned after load-in sometimes in a club situation where you're just sort of on your own and maybe the audio guy doesn't really care that you want more beer downstairs. So I think it's a nice value add that makes it a better place to play, and then in turn gives you a better reputation, and then in turn you get better artists coming through. So I think that's where you see that return. It's a little hard to maybe track to that dollar, but it does help your reputation.
I think also, I'm sorry, one quick sec, Doug. I also think that in the advance that you and Mark kind of set the tone for your venue, that you're going to have a relatively easy day before we even roll in. So I think that you guys set the tone for us. So sorry, Doug.
No, that's a good point. And I was just going to add to that. I do generally do as many tour managers do, I send my booking agent a report of how the show day was. And if a venue was exceptionally good or exceptionally bad, I will highlight that and say, look, these guys are doing a great job over here. And I don't know if that affects their decision on future shows. I would like to think that it does. I've had a conversation with some agents who have told me that it does, but it's certainly not going to harm you if you have something that sets you apart. But Mark, go ahead, your turn. And you kind of did chat a little bit about things just before.
Well, having been a tour manager and a production manager in my past life, I was able to, now having a house gig, being able to kind of know what's going on in David's head, what's going on in Mark's and Jim's and MJ's and Doug's head, kind of like, what are they going to be, what is their concern? What are they going to be asking about? What's going to be happening at 2:00? Where should I be? How can I be helpful? I kind of look at it from a parenting point of view. I figure if I smother you, you're going to love me. So I try and give you everything that we can. And I think any band that's been through our house will tell you the phrase of, sorry, that's not in the budget, or the phrase of, sorry, we couldn't get that. It doesn't happen because I know how frustrating it can be to hear those words on behalf of the house. It's ridiculous. I also have that advantage of knowing that the next day, David or Jim is going to be on the phone with the agent, the manager, the publicist, and they're going to say, "How was your day? How'd it go?" Especially the fact that we're kind of a new venue. The agencies want to know, how did it go? What were they like? How was settlement? How were their receipts? How did everything go? So I try and make sure that I dot all my I's, I cross all my T's. I got the gosh darn hot coffee on for you. I've got real cream. I've got real sugar. In every dressing room, in addition to catering, there's a K-cup dispenser. There's a teapot. There's teas and just, white fluffy towels. Take all you want. I got 144 shower towels, and I got 266 black stage towels, all of which are folded, dried, and ready to go. So
I will attest to that. There is huge buckets at every door with hundreds and hundreds of towels. We are in heaven, towel heaven.
As we know from our last episode, you have made every production coordinator in the world happy because
yeah, that's it. Yeah. And you can really tell when you walk into a venue when somebody who has toured works there. Some of this stuff might sound a little mundane to you if you haven't been on the road, but arriving at a venue with a clean, fresh stack of towels is it's like, oh my God, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Or take two and take one to put underneath your feet when you get out of the shower.
Yeah.
There's a dirty hamper in the dressing room. Throw them in the dirty hamper. We'll get them clean. No big deal. Because I wash them.
You really can tell. I want to give a shout out to the Fairfield Theater Company in Connecticut. I think that's it. The Fairfield Theater in Connecticut. I went through there. This is a small theater, and they just had, and like you're describing there, Mark, they had everything that you could ever, just things that come up day to day, like a wine bottle opener, and it was attached to the wall so the band can't disappear with it when they're drunk at the end of the night, like they always do. A clothing steamer, an iron, all the things that Mark described, just little things that you could spend 30 minutes of your day looking for a wine opener or sending a runner out to grab one, or having to go out yourself if you don't have a runner on those size of shows. I want to throw it to my colleagues. Is there any venue that really jumps out to any of you? Any little?
Well, Dan, I saw a post from Dan, I believe. Yeah, Dan Case. I was at the Van Buren this year as well, and they've got cold brew on tap at the venue in the back, and I'm telling you, that is a blessing and a curse for all my cold brew lovers out there having a waterfall.
Nobody's sleeping after Phoenix. That is for sure.
What venue had kombucha? Somebody had kombucha on tap backstage recently. I don't know if it was one of the House of Blues or something like that. But it was amazing. They just had a tap like kombucha on tap.
I wanted to say that like all these venues that we're talking about, and talking about like the 930 with the cupcakes and stuff, it's like they're not just great because they have these great things to eat or drink. It's like that's the icing, literally the icing on the cake. It's like they're also really
that goes
like
into making those.
Yeah. And it's all the stuff that like Mark and Karen they're doing. Yeah, and they're doing what Mark and Karen said too. Like they're great on the actual technical stuff too in the advance. So it's like
cupcakes if you don't have your rider fulfilled. And
Right. Because you'd be like, oh
Right.
God, we're going to that place with those cupcakes. You know, they
Great.
think they're,
it's an apology for not actually advancing your show.
It's like
You have to actually stand behind your cupcakes, figuratively.
yeah, exactly.
it's great branding,
earned
but
the
they also
cupcakes.
great branding, but they also back it up, and that's
Yeah,
important.
yeah,
And
yeah.
if
Yeah.
you know, the cupcakes, I love them to death, and I do
Yeah.
definitely do not need any more. But their
Yeah.
team backs it up, and
Yeah.
that's
So
the program.
all you venue people watching, like, don't give a cupcake unless you can back it up with like the towels and like the strikeable stage.
Yeah.
Sean, I thought was a really good point, is that if you just don't say no for the sake of saying no, you know, like when someone asks you for something, even if in your head you're like, no way, be like, you know what, we're gonna try to do that for you. Let me see what I can do, and to try to be accommodating. No one likes a house where you come in and you just get told no left and right, especially for things that seem reasonable, even if they're maybe just out of the ordinary. So trying to be accommodating and not saying no for the sake of saying no is like my rule number one, and it sounds like for Mark as well. To just don't be like, sorry, there's no budget for that. We can't.
I think for me, like the Sinclair, like I did like a really like an underplay in there with somebody it was a couple years ago, in Harvard Square, and it is tiny. Like it's smaller than the Fox, you know, and it's teeny, but they had put in like showers and it was tiny, you know, I think it was stackable, but laundry room in there. And I was like, this is amazing for a tiny little venue. But you know, they're kind of doing it a similar way to like how the 930 does. Is like you just get everything, you know, in the dressing room, and you they have an in-house restaurant, so you eat there. And you know, they pointed out to me, they're like, well, the type of artists that generally come through there are people that are like in a van. So it's like not having to pay to go to a laundromat to do their laundry, you know, and being able to shower in a nice shower. They were nice, you know, and you know, and they get a lot of bands on their way up. So it's like, like Karen said, it's like, it's just it's kind of a catch-22, because it's like you get a band on their way up and it's this really professional, amazing venue, and it's got everything they need. And so that's going to go back to the agents, and that relationship builds, you know.
I think
and,
one thing that is worth stressing is we're talking here mostly about North America, but if you go to Europe, you experience a whole different world, and that's part of the reason why touring folks make such a great host as a venue person, because, and there are reasons for it, because funding for venues and for the arts in certain countries in Europe is on a whole different scale. So you might have a 300 cap room in Switzerland that has its own apartment out the back with its own restaurant, and they will accommodate and feed the bands for free or include it in the deal. And you're staying in for a couple of nights next to an Alp in Switzerland in this venue that's clean enough to eat off the floor, and everyone is being paid well. And it's a different world. So, you know, if you can bring some of these ideas back from having toured in Europe, I mean, there's a venue in Toulouse in France called Le Bikini, which has a swimming pool and a Michelin star chef in the catering area. He is phenomenal, and it's my favorite venue in the world. And it holds 1,500 people. It's mind blowing. So it's not a level playing field because of the funding in Europe for some of these rooms, but it's if you have toured over there, you can kind of take some of those ideas and bring them back to our criminally underfunded venues in North America and in the UK.
I noticed that a lot when I was touring in Europe throughout the 90s and the early 2000s, that they really had it together in a lot of the smaller venues, and venues anywhere from, you know, let's say 750 to 1,500. They just seemed to play together better as a team, and they always had better gear, and they seem to take a sense of pride. In my early touring days, what I took to heart and put it into application at our venue was, some of you may remember going into the Shoreline Amphitheater when Bill was still around, and then also going into the what was the theater in San Francisco? Was it the Wiltern?
The Warfield.
Warfield.
Yeah.
Going in there was just, it was like they would follow you around. Go, what do you want? What do you need? You know, it was mind-boggling. You know, when the drummer from Nine Inch Nails got a mic stand bass to the head and split his head wide open, they had a paramedic there. I mean, it was incredible. They would give you everything and anything you want. In the early days of the House of Blues, when they first opened, whether you were a local opener thrown on as the third act or the mid-level act, here's your dressing room, here's the dinner order, here's a little bit of rider food, and here's what, you know, showers are over there, have at it. So that's kind of like where we come from. Everybody's equal.
Jim, over to you.
Yeah.
So we had previously, Mark had discussed about the things local businesses, deals he has with local businesses and perks he gets from local businesses. Is there anything that you have and your venue has that you offer bands when they come to town?
Well, we're in Colorado, so we have dispensaries that we work with. So there's always that. It's usually the first question everybody asks when they get off the bus, maybe or after, where is your shower and where's your toilet? Is your nearest dispensary, and we have dispensary partners we work with too to hook up bands. So some tour managers hate this, and some really love it, but it depends on how your band does at high altitude, smoking weed. But otherwise, we have the normal. We have great hotel relationships, so we can always give hotel deals with our hotel partners. Food restaurants nearby that we work with that give discounts to artists who are playing the venues, things like that. You have to look at your local production manager as like your local consultant, and they should be able to point you in the right direction and give you the best deals on everything from a laundromat to the restaurant to the hotel to the dispensary.
Nice. Anybody else have any venues they want to that they've had perks at venues that you guys, anybody on the panel, or Mark, do you have anything else that you you offer, local businesses offer?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the campus that we're on, which is part of the old huge complex, there's a beautiful brand new Hilton Garden Inn, and they're part of us. So that's a handy dandy little item where if your driver gets in, and I can show him or her exactly where to park, and to the point where park it, leave it, 4 o'clock in the morning, Jim gives them his float and says, go to the hotel, go to bed, and he or she, they leave the bus there all day, the truck there all day, doesn't matter. We also have a beautiful, wonderful microbrewery that just opened where they actually make the beer there. We had to reinforce the floor because when they were building it, the floor started to crack. And the underground parking garage, people were like, one guy looked up and goes, hey, I think the floor's cracking. So, but anyway, that's been done since you were there, David. But Mark was there. Mark and I had a production meeting there. It was a very important meeting. Then we also have a new restaurant that just opened. We have a Starbucks. We have a sandwich shop, and we have a regional favorite ice cream store there as well, which is kind of fun. Downtown Akron's not that far away. It's a beautiful neighborhood to go for a walk or a bike ride if you guys are carrying bikes. If you have any creepy people in your band, such as when Dawes was first here, they wanted to go play Pokemon Go in the old cemetery across the street. So about 4 a.m, I walked out to shut the doors and bring everything in, and there's like 10 guys wandering around the cemetery. I was like, okay, guys, way to go. But I could take you up on the roof. I can show the historical building. That's that.
Well, hey, Mark and Karen, you guys have some shows that are coming out. Can you tell us about those and what parameters you're going to be following?
Yeah, that is wild right now. Let me tell you. We have a lot of shows booked in October. For the most part, national acts are not touring right now. I think we all know that. So luckily, we live in an area here where we have a ton of great local bands or regional acts who are also sometimes national acts, but happen to live here. So we have a pretty full calendar this fall right now. of bands that are playing. We are limited to 100 people in the venue with a lot of social distancing protocols. We have worked out a package where you basically buy a 4-person table for a set price, and it includes 4 tickets, 2 tacos, 2 drinks, that kind of thing. Everything will be ordered via app on your phone, so no one has to get up and shout their drink order at a bartender. So things just get brought to your table, and you can remove your mask to eat and drink, but you put it on to go use the bathroom or leave or whatever else you need to do in the venue. So ideally keeping people contained to their pod. So we're going to try it. It's going to be interesting. It's not anything like a show that we've done before, but we're excited about just bringing back some music. People have been really enthusiastic. The response has been great from the public. So I know people are ready, and we feel like we can do this safely right now. The numbers here are pretty low. So we're gonna go for it and see how it goes this fall.
Karen, what kind of acts are you booking? Regional acts or touring acts? What are you doing to start out with?
Not really big touring acts. These are mostly regional acts here, like 10th Mountain Division, the Magic Beans. There's bands like that that reside here for the most part.
Yeah.
Whether or not they tour too. So that's been the easiest thing to grab locally, since no one is really traveling right now.
Do you think that the ordering from, like, you're ordering from an app, or I notice now, like when I've gone to a restaurant, they'll have like QR codes on the table and you just bring it up and there's a menu, which I love, because I'm like, okay, it's ecologically friendly, and you can change the menu anytime you want. Do you think that's going to stick? I love that. I'm like, oh my God.
I am a big fan.
Yeah.
And even the bar, like the drink service, is sort of revolutionary for a club. And again, you couldn't do it with 1,000 people, but with 100 people and a couple bartenders, you can have someone running drinks to the table, and that cuts down on how many people are getting up and moving around and mingling. And, again, no one's shouting their drink order across the bar, which would maybe not be great. So we're, putting in some new protocols that I think will maybe last for a while.
Yeah. I think there's some innovation that, it just seems so obvious, but then you're like, we just never did it. Right. There's something I really hope to.
Some downtime to think about these things for the last 6 months to prepare.
Totally. Phoebe's asking, in addition to the 100-person cap, is there a limit to the amount of staff that can be working at any given time?
Yeah, not really. It doesn't include the staff in that number, but we're keeping it to a minimum just for budgetary reasons.
Right.
To really have a huge staff there if it's not needed, because obviously we're running on a slightly tighter budget, having 100 people instead of 1,200. So.
Hey, Mark, what about you? What are you guys doing?
In Ohio at the moment, the stipulations are 15% of your sellable capacity. And all liquor sales end at 10 p.m. So, for example, the Goodyear Theater, Ben Barr and I have figured out, along with another guy from the office in Beechwood, Eddie, that we could do 220. So we are doing a show, or a series of shows, coming up on the weekend after Thanksgiving at the theater. So we will be putting the show on sale pretty soon. I'd rather not announce who it is because we haven't finalized everything, but it's definitely happening. And we are going to also broadcast the show overseas, because they have a huge overseas market. We have pretty robust Wi-Fi. It's like 335 up, 335 down. So I don't think that doing the simulcast will be a problem. We'll probably spend a tech day the day before, get everything ready. So that's another way we can capture some revenue, help the band capture some revenue, help them stay relevant here, and then also stay relevant overseas. But at the moment, that's all we've got. We're looking at one more show with a band that usually does our holiday show in December. Again, still trying to finalize that position, but if that's going to happen, that's what we're going to do. We also, the thing worth pointing out before I stop talking is, we found out that with the limited capacity, it makes a ton more sense to do a series of shows, kind of like a mini residency. So it's one load in, one load out, which I know Mark will love because you're saving money. And this particular artist is bringing in minimal amount of stuff. They want to do everything on their own. They don't want to be exposed to a lot of people. So it'll be the house lighting guy. It'll be our house sound guy. These guys are self-contained. They have one front of house guy, be 6 band members. And so again, we probably wouldn't use any stage crew or loaders for that. Sorry to say, but that's just the way it's going to go for now. It definitely won't be happening in the future, but that's where we're at in Ohio, and that's what we can do, and that's our plan. And I'm going to be documenting it, and I'm going to be taking a lead from Karen on this. I'm going to be filming everything, documenting it, and notating it. And I've even developed a new load-in sheet. We've talked to our cleaning crew as far as how we're going to do everything in between. And so we're going to be documenting and filming everything to maybe kind of like say, hey, this is how we did it. We did it successfully. And then Monday I have a meeting with the Summit County health inspector. And I'm saying, hey, this is what we're doing. There you go.
Well, I have a quick question for both of you. Sorry, MJ. Will you guys be having a COVID compliance person on for both of your situations?
Certified.
Yeah,
that's me. I already got certified.
Yeah, we'll have somebody making sure that everything is being adhered to as well.
Sorry, MJ, on to you.
Oh, no, I was going to ask, I actually have 2 questions. The first one relates to this. Do you think that in these types of shows where, like Karen, you said, these aren't really sustainable necessarily long-term, but it's a good step to show it can be done, see how it can be done. Do you think that with the sizes of your venues that you guys are in a position maybe to strike that balance, be able to kind of be like, you're not like a huge arena that has the crazy overhead, but yet can only put 500 people in it.
Right.
Do you guys think you're in a position that you have venues that can make this work?
I mean, it's not really working in that sense.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's not sustainable long term. It's not
right.
It's not a business model that is successful in the long run, but we have to start somewhere. This is what we can do right now.
Like
we can bring people back to work.
Yeah. But like it can be built on, like you guys have installs, you know what I mean? It's like you're not having to bring in everything,
No,
you're
that's true. So we have some basic operating costs, but yes, the PA's there, the lighting rig is there. We really just have labor, to think about each time, but that adds up too. And it's a narrow margin right now.
Yeah, that is true.
To make money, but it's a good stepping stone. It shows that we can do it, maybe do it safely. And as things improve, that will help us already have our foot in the door to then just expand from there.
Yeah. So my next question was, I wanted to ask you guys, because if we have time, we always talk about mentoring and like ask about mentoring and I think that, venues, independent venues, you're in a position where you have a little leeway to be able to be mentors to people. I wanted to ask both of you, like, do you have programs where you work with people that are wanting to get in, wanting to start out, wanting to eventually start touring? And I know, Karen, you talked a little bit about it when you were on our previous session, but I'd like to talk to both of you about that. So I'll let you start and then talk to Mark.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I'm really most proud of at our venues is our internship program. So we have a really thriving, in normal times, production internship program where we do 3 sessions a year, and people can, apply for the internship. We accept most of them, and we have about 10 to 12 for each session. We do like an orientation, and then basically they are required to work 2 shows a week from start to finish as an intern. And then we also do some workshops and training, and all of our staff sort of understand that we're a training venue that way. And, unless we're crazy and behind schedule for some reason, everyone takes the time to show them how to do things right. Let them mix an opener, let them run lights for an opening act, let them help focus, things like that, to really like get them trained. So they get like actual on the job training, basically working those 2 shows a week. And they have to do 50 shows to complete the internship. And then from there, we see how it goes. A lot of times they segue into being stagehands for a little bit, just to get some pay. And a lot of them end up becoming our staff. A huge chunk of our staff started off as interns, including me. So
Yeah.
a lot of people got their foot in the door that way, because we all know if you show up at the door of a venue and say, I just graduated from some recording school in Florida that I won't mention, people are going to laugh at you. Like, they don't want to just hire you because you have a degree in audio engineering. They want to know that you have some real world experience. So we feel like we can offer that. We train them to do things our way. We know we can trust them by the time they graduate. And then we can also refer them out. I get hit up by a lot of artist managers with, up and coming bands looking for van tours, and they need like a junior TM / front of house to just get them started. And we shuttle a lot of people out the door on these tours, for sure.
That's awesome. Mark, do you work?
Well, it's funny you should ask. At the moment, the festival division does a lot of that. We used to hold the Cleveland-based one at the sporting complex of a all-female grade school and high school organization called the Laurel School. And we would hire a lot of their interns, including my boss, Denny and Steve, would teach a semester-long class at the school on marketing, operations, ticketing, and everything related to putting on a festival. They were all encouraged very deeply to come to the office and participate in being part of, being part of the planning process from start to finish. I was not afraid to grab one of my interns and say, here's what a contract looks like. Here's how many are going to come through. I need you to sort them out by stage alphabetically or by time. And that's your job. And so if I needed to get back to a contract, they would do it. I also had my production intern. She was making phone calls and coordinating advancing. If there was more 2 or 3 artists coming at the same time, they would park them, greet them, give them their packets of credentials, and tell them exactly where everything was they need to go. At the theater, it gets a little bit more difficult, probably because we are an IATSE house. I do have one particular gentleman that has worked with us on 3 of our festivals now. He is also in school at the community college up in Cleveland called Cuyahoga Community College. It's abbreviated as Tri-C. They have a program called the Recording and Arts Technology Program. It's a 2-year certificate. It's a great school. They spent $23 million on a building. They have an SSL console that's longer than a football field. These kids, they go in there, they learn, they earn, and they come out and they do really well. One particular gentleman, I bring him down and I say, okay, today you're going to be a stage manager. This is your job. This is what you do. And he seems to enjoy it. Jim can attest that I had a great mentor many years ago, Stuart Ross, who took a long time in 1994 as I was prepping for an arena tour and said, come on down to Lollapalooza's office. I'm there 3 days a week. We'll go through all the show files. I'll show you how to settle shows. It was priceless. From that point forward, I feel it's very important to pay it forward and pay it back. There's no information that's withheld. There's no job that you can't do. There should be no barriers in any way, shape, or form. The only time I ever get testy with one of my interns is if I said, I've gone through this 3 or 4 times with you. You should know this by now. But other than that, I give them a lot of responsibility. I give them a huge reign.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was my my first boss when I worked for a production company in Denver. They were mostly doing we were doing like private gigs, and we did festivals, but in the sense of like we would produce like Classic Rock Fest for radio station or something. But he'd just hand me a contract and be like, mark this up. And he'd look at it, and if it looked good, he's like, send it out. I learned so much that way by being given the responsibility. I was like, there you go.
That's a huge way to learn.
Mhm.
It's the best way to learn, and it's it's great that those programs are available too, because I feel like back then they weren't, those resources weren't available. So I was just like the fiddler on the roof in the back alley, ready for someone to grab me and throw me in a bus or in a van, and that was it. That was how I did. That's how I did it. So it's great to see y'all have structure behind that and getting these kids on the right track.
Totally. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody in the chat before we wrap up?
And while we're waiting for that, Karen, I just wanted to say I think it's great that that your venues are sort of shelters for roadies off the road when I know that you said it can be difficult to manage their schedules and it comes as a drawback, but it can be on both sides of it. It can be tricky when you're touring and then you have 2 months off, because a lot of places quite rightly reasonably are reticent to give you a lot of work if they know you're good then going to disappear back on tour. But on the flip side, if I go into a venue where I know that the house crew also tour, I know that 9 times out of 10 I'm going to have an easy day.
You might even know someone who's working there from the last tour you did. So you tend to also know everybody, which is kind of nice too. And they request to work the shows because they know the monitor guy from some other tour they did. So it helps there's already some familiarity when they walk in the door. It's a juggling act though, for sure. There's, I sort of just rely on the fact that at any given moment, 5 people are on the road, everybody else is home looking for work. And then it just sort of like shuffles. And just when I start to panic because I have too many people and not enough shows, 3 people get tours and leave. So it usually works out. It's a juggle.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, just before we wrap up, I'm going to quickly share something with you guys. Here is the backstage at Le Bikini in Toulouse in France.
I can't compete with that.
The buses park right along this fence to the right. There's a giant parking lot. Everyone eating here is having duck confit and amazing Michelin star lobster. And it's if you ever see a tour with Le Bikini on it, take that tour regardless of the pay, regardless of whatever else is going on, because you're gonna have a great day.
Doesn't Meriwether Post have a pool now? Yeah.
Well, buy a pool
or a hot tub or something. Yes, it does. There's a whole bunch of yeses in the chat.
New Hampshire has one too, doesn't it? Someplace, a venue in New Hampshire, I thought had is supposed to have a great backstage area, but I haven't been there yet.
Some venues are just blessed with where they happen to be, what they happen to be next to, or how much money is in their local government's funds.
Well, and also in France, there's all the wonderful subsidies for the arts. So
yeah. Well, it looks like we have made it to the end of webinar number 49. Thank you so much, Mark and Karen, for joining us to let us know how things have been going and how things are going in your house and how you build and make a better venue. It's great to hear from you both today. For anyone who was not here with us today, it'll be streamed on our YouTube to watch at a later time. And then on Monday, we will be celebrating webinar number 50, a huge milestone. I can't believe we made it to number 50 of TM 101. So we'll be having a virtual celebration and looking back at the last 49 webinars. So everyone have a great weekend. Stay tuned on our socials for any updates, and we'll see you on Monday.
Hey, listen, thank you very much for the original idea.
Oh, wait. Hang
on. Go ahead, Mark.
I mean,
thank you so much for having me. I miss you all. I cannot tell you, as a guy that started in the mid 80s and sitting here watching you guys do these things and listening in a lot, and then once in a while throwing in a smart ass comment or a fact or figure, trying to mostly bust Jim's chops. I'm truly humbled. Thank you very much. I wish you guys all the best in the upcoming months. May we all see each other very soon. There was one thing I learned many years ago, as I'm now approaching 60. Our hellos and our goodbyes become much more important. I had this, breakdown cry experience with Richard Patrick, who's the frontman from Filter. And when I saw him when he was in town last visiting his brother Louis, remembering the old days, the early 90s with Nine Inch Nails and Beyond and all that. And I looked at Richard and I got very upset. And he goes, "What's wrong?" I go, "Got to pay attention as we get older, how we say goodbye and how we say hello." So my thank you is very sincere. I wish you all the very best. And let's get back to work.
Thank you, Mark.
Amen to that.
Yes.
And I just
Absolutely.
wanted to put a thank you to Daryl Dixon for the original idea on this one too, for his
Yeah,
input
thanks, Daryl.
on this. So.
Double D.
Yay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
See
you,
you for number
guys.
50.
Let's see.
All right. See you next week.